Hello, everyone. Relax and enjoy this weekly compilation made just for you. Without further ado, on to the video. How many a-holes we got in this thread? I'm surrounded by a-holes. Do you get it? Oh, anyway, whatever. Story 1. My hag of a stepmom gave away my PlayStation 4 while I was away in college, so I rented out her house while she was on her honeymoon with her newest husband. I am an only son. My mom died of ovarian cancer at only 55 years of age. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college, and they were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22 and about to graduate college with my degree in chemistry, where the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my now stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Grace, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, comforting after my mom passed. I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources, but it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad mourned my mom for a year, and that whole time Grace would check in on him by phone every month or so, in my opinion, to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks into him. After a year passed, Grace took the gloves off and went hard after my dad. Grace was only 40 when she and my dad started seeing each other. I didn't like her, but at the same time, my dad at least didn't seem too depressed anymore, so I tried to be less pessimistic about her and give her the benefit of the doubt. In my gut, I didn't trust her, though. But we are Scandinavians, and at least in my family, the son does not tell his father what to do or even offer any opinion. Grace is from the Czech Republic, if you're wondering. My father was a very successful banker during his career and amassed quite a portfolio of wealth. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Grace and my father are married. My dad never really got over my mom, though, and he was getting weaker and weaker, even though he was only 57. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me point blank, "Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life?" I told him I don't need anything. I'm a man and can take care of myself, but what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead only a year later at 59. I, of course, have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse's wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her, but I really honestly do not think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mom and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of his existing money to Grace, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me several tens of thousands of dollars, which were, of course, very useful to me. Grace tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as hell that she didn't get my dad's house, too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for massive profit. During the first few months after my dad's death, I had the nauseating, creepy experience of knowing that Grace was trying to feel me out to see if I might be into a little relationship with her. Gross. She still stayed at the house, though, because over the last 3 years, she had gotten used to living there and acted like she owned it. And even though I officially owned it, I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months. And even then, it wasn't to see Grace, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months, I think Grace gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of my dad's dollars that she now had, that I was somehow independently wealthy and would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually hydrogen bomb this bee when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground, and one time when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy-looking D-bag named Ivan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house, that they owned it. I played along. Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I'm too old to play video games. I don't even know this mother effer, and you give him my PS4 to some other crap who I also don't know? I quickly changed all my network passwords the same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Ivan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with life. I tell her that I graduated college and already secured employment with a local firm and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled, especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then, in a patronizing way, she tells me, "You always have a place in our house, though. You're welcome to stay whenever you please." Thanks, Grace. Really generous of you. What I really say is that I will probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that's wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland and have a wedding with Ivan and afterward have her honeymoon. She assures me it's a local affair, otherwise I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks me if I can watch the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I really say is, of course I'll take care of the house. I'm careful to not say your house. She and her D-bag fiancé, who I'm 100% sure is only there for Grace's money, go on their trip and I immediately put out advertisements in rental websites offering to lease my house. I hire movers and have all of Grace's furniture and possessions boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Grace. Locks? Changed. All of them. Within days, I am inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing furnished house with fantastic views. I rent it to a wonderful young family, a barrister and his school teacher wife, and their 2 preteen children. They pay me their first and last month's rent and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my crazy stepmom who thinks this is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they need any assurance that I'm on the level. I also gave my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid 4 months of storage in advance, which is a whole month longer than Grace's Czech honeymoon adventure. I then found a great apartment in the city near my new place at work, where there I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long workday. We've been dating 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Grace, of course, tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without me having to even speak to her garbage face again. From what I hear, she and her trash husband left the country, and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke, like chavs usually become when they take a taste of a little bit of what they think is the good life. So maybe Grace will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent is generating so much money that not only am I able to help pay for my cousin's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own together with my fiancé. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Grace had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house just to be a good sport, and definitely if she stayed the hell out of my room. But no, she had to act all proprietary, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. Postscript. I bought another PS4, even though I didn't use my old one all that much. It didn't matter. It wasn't for Grace to give away. You don't give away other people's things. You give away your own things, which is why I chose to kick Grace out of my house, because it's mine, and I decide who stays there. Well, I'm afraid, as you said, first off, it is your house to do with as you please, and Grace was clearly kind of ignoring that fact a bit with the way that she was acting. She gave away some of your stuff, which I would say, not quite equivalent things, but certainly a good catalyst for this to happen. And finally, she got hundreds of thousands of dollars. She could go and put at least a down payment on a nice house or outright buy a house in a place that's less expensive to live. She got plenty, so the fact that she was trying to, act all huffy about that house and everything, no, I do not believe that you are the a-hole. It definitely sounds like Grace is the a-hole. Whether or not she was even more nefarious and you're being very generous with her. Who's to say? I am very sorry for the loss of both of your parents in this situation. That part is pretty much what sucks the worst, that not only did you lose your parents, but then had to deal with the fallout that was Grace. And you certainly should not have had to deal with that. So, yeah, no, you, not an a-hole. Grace, an a-hole. Ivan, I mean, he's got to be at least part a-hole, right? I don't know. I mean, you know what? We'll give Ivan a pass. Ivan, you're all right, but you may turn out to be terrible. Who knows? You ever F up? I sure have. Constantly. Story 1. Today I effed up by jumping into a lake in my bra and panties to save a man that turned out to be an elite military scuba diver in training. I'm couch surfing with my sister and her boyfriend. I work for him at the lakeside bar trying to pay for college. My state is open, and while I'm not thrilled, I need both the job and my scored sofa accommodations to make it work. To give them their space and myself a break from the doom scrolling, I take a run by the lake in the mornings. This lake is bomb butt and draws scuba divers to the flooded town at the bottom. Today I was in my own head running when a dark mass floated to the surface 40 feet away. I was on the craggy side of the lake and this dude looked dead. D-E-A-D. Facing away from me, his head was tipped back, eyes closed, bobbing like a fishing lure. No one else was around, so I thought he was quantum crazy out here scuba diving alone at the crack butt of dawn, giving himself the bends or some nonsense. Like a jackbutt, I didn't yell at him to check in. Instead, I towed off my shoes and stripped to my skivvies to save the imbecile. The movie trailer in my head had me taking 3 glorious steps and launching into the deep blue water, Black Widow style. Instead, my tender feet hit the sharp rocks and I contorted under the pain like a slinky as I uncoordinatedly pitched myself into the water doing a side flop. I was also wearing my contacts, so I swam hard in his direction with my eyes closed. When I opened them, he was dead butt staring at me like I'd lost my ever-loving mind, so I blurted, "Are you okay?" He removed the regulator and incredulously said, "Yes?" My brain blue screened while I tread water. The lake felt infinitely deep. Before I could terrify myself by hearing the Jaws theme song, I turned to nope the hell out of there, yelling over my shoulder, "I thought you needed saving," to explain my idiocy. As I pivoted, another dude cleared his throat from 30 feet away on the other side. I never heard a sound from him, so I freaked out, flailing and belting an ear-wounding scream at him. Both butt hats laughed as a few more heads surfaced around us. I was surrounded by divers, all wildly entertained by my ridiculous high-octane F-up. After pointing to me and the beach, the merman that was my original target cautiously swam toward me after I nodded and escorted me to the shore. The beach was much further than I had anticipated, so I was trying to low-key breathe, hiding my need to suck all of the O2 from the air. Also, the comedy of the situation consumed me, and I started to giggle. Finally, I joked, "Dude, you are lucky you weren't actually dying because it would have taken everything I had to drag your sorry butt this far." He chuckled before offering me a tow. Hell no, not gonna happen. Even if I had to doggy paddle, I wouldn't openly accept that defeat. He quietly mocked me the rest of the way to shore. I'm a secret sap for it. They were cadets or recruits graduates from a military college here for the summer. They've been training in pools and were doing some open water exercises. They've been out there at least part of the night, and I'm sure I blew up whatever drill they were running. He's training for pre-dive school, and since I'm an expert Googler, I'm guessing that means combat diving. At the shore, I did my best to throw my shoulders back and march out of the water in my sports bra and undies in front of what I can only imagine are some pretty bad butt men. I did invite him and his clandestine crew for an absolutely overpriced beer at the bar tonight before shame jogging back into the woods for my clothes. Too long didn't read. I tried to save an injured diver, ended up crashing some kind of military training. So yeah, you definitely effed up. But at least you effed up doing something good and positive. And now you know next time, call out beforehand like, "Hey, are you okay?" Something like that. And then if he hadn't responded, I think you would have been absolutely justified and wouldn't have to feel embarrassed at all. As it stands, you might have to feel a little bit embarrassed, but like I said, it was all for a good reason. You were trying to save somebody, you know. Maybe next time just, leave your clothes on and just, toss your phone out of your pocket or something. That might tone down the embarrassment just a little bit. Or if you're smart, and that happens, just lie and be like, yeah, I know there was a drill going on and I want to be part of the crew. I'm here to prove my stuff. Look at how quick I got in here. You guys hiring? Huh? Pretty great, huh? I'm gonna go. Yeah, maybe that one wouldn't work too well. Story 2. A woman let her dog crap on the airport floor, so I crapped on her plans. While walking to my gate at LAX, I noticed a woman whose dog was in the middle of doing its business. The woman was loudly FaceTiming with her back to the dog, so I assumed she didn't notice. That was likely the thought shared by the gentleman who tried to get her attention. Excuse me, miss, he said in a polite tone. The woman glared at him. Your dog? He sheepishly continued, pointing to the mid-poop pup. The woman rolled her eyes and went back to FaceTime as the man slinked away, seemingly embarrassed. Some people, she bellowed to her FaceTime companion with no hint of irony, are just so damned rude. When her dog finished, the woman started walking away, leaving everything right on the airport floor. Another woman tried to stop her. You're not going to clean that up? She asked, as shocked as the rest of us were. They have people for that, the offender replied, disappearing into the crowd as much as someone yelling into their phone can disappear into a crowd. I stood near the pile and warned people to walk around it while someone else got a maintenance worker's attention. No one said anything. We were so shocked that anyone could be that horrible. When I got to my gate, the woman was there too. Great, we were both going to Tokyo. When I travel abroad, I get embarrassed by other Americans doing things 100 times less embarrassing than leaving animal feces on the floor of an airport. To make it worse, her dog was now barking at everyone who walked by. I have nothing against people who flying with their dogs. I do it often, but it is a privilege I take seriously. My dog is well trained and behaves better than most people. He certainly behaves better than that a-hole. Speaking of a-holes, there is a pet relief area inside LAX past security just 2 gates away from where the party pooper let her dog go to town. It didn't matter. She was the type of person to litter 3 feet from an empty garbage can. While her dog barked at the world, the woman had moved from FaceTiming with no headphones to listening to music with no headphones. I don't like to throw around the word sociopath, but I don't know how else I could explain just how selfish and terrible of a person she was. I bet her car was somewhere in long-term parking, parked across 3 spots with paint on the bumper from the child's bike she hit without leaving a note. Everyone else tried to ignore her, sitting as far away from her as they could. I am not everyone else. I sat right down next to the horrible woman. Are you going to London on business? I said. I'm going to Tokyo, she responded gruffly, annoyed that I interrupted her DJing. Oh, I said. Oh, then you better hurry. That flight got moved to gate 35C. This is the flight to London. I figured I could give her a little moment of panic as payback for how terribly she was treating everyone. I didn't predict what would happen next. She grabbed her bags and her dog in a huff and stormed out of the gate without even checking. She was so self-involved, she didn't notice that the monitor at our gate still said Tokyo and almost everyone at the gate was Japanese. Based on her actions, she believed me that the flight had been moved, so she's also an a-hole for not thanking me. Some people, I thought as I watched her rush away from the gate without stopping her, are just so damned rude. The flight to Tokyo was at gate 69A, so the 53 gates were on the other side of the next terminal. And I felt guilty knowing she probably berated some poor clerk who had to explain to her that there was no gate 53C. I don't know if she made it back to this flight before we took off or not, but I didn't see her board and I didn't hear her dog. Her missing her flight was not my original intention, but it would be a fine punishment for her being so rude to everyone and making a low-paid stranger clean feces off the floor. What makes me wonder if I went too far is the knowledge that Delta only has 1 flight to Tokyo each day. Whoops. Maybe she can rebook on another airline. I hear they have people for that. Edit. For those who want to play internet detective and demanded to see my ticket, as if that proves anything, I'm a stand-up comedian with a show in LA last night and a show in Tokyo tonight. But if that's not enough for you, here's my ticket, and yes, Delta does allow dogs on flights to Japan. Edit 2. Rest in peace, inbox, in a ridiculous 1,000 messages way. Thanks to all the nice folks, especially the people who are coming to shows, etc. I'm trying to get to all your comments, but it may take me a few days. For those who are being Ds, I hope you wheel your suitcase into her dog crap. Nope. Anyone who's rude like that deserves what she gets. If she didn't even have the common sense to, check or ask, to heck with her. Littering is bad enough. Letting your dog poop indoors and then being like, they have people to take care of that? No, you're a pretty bad person. You are so thoughtless to other people. Even for stuff in stores where it's you leave stuff off a shelf or whatever, it's yeah, it's a person's job to go and face the shelf, but if you're right there, put it back right, you know? And yeah, dog poop does not belong there. Put it away correctly. Clean it up. It's your dog. Don't be rude. And the FaceTime call in the open, without a headset, fine. You got the call right away and it's oh crap, I don't have time to get my headphones hooked up. Hey, how's it going? Sure, fine. But then listening to music like that in the open, in an area where people are all together? No, you're being such an a-hole, lady. I hope you did miss your flight to Tokyo. And I hope it just ruined your day, because you sure ruined someone else's. EM brings her 4 kids to an adult-only wedding. I attended an adult-only wedding for a coworker a few days ago. The actual ceremony was in a very small church, so it was mostly family and close friends, but the reception was for roughly 250 people. The reception was at a very elegant hotel ballroom. Not child-friendly in any way. Crystal stemware, expensive linens on the table, etc. About half an hour into the reception, a commotion started that made everyone stare. EM is arguing with the wedding planner loudly. Me, being the nosy broad that I am, inched closer to hear. Turns out EM brought her 4 young children to the reception, even though the invitations clearly stated adults only. The EM insisted that her kids, I'm guessing at ages, but the oldest one looked 8-ish and the youngest was under a year old, were super well behaved, so it was fine. Now, keep in mind, this was around 7:30 p.m. WP was having none of it. She insisted that children were not allowed and she had to leave. In a last-ditch effort to get admitted, EM shouted at the bride. The bride went over and listened to her for a moment and then said in a syrupy sweet voice, "Of course you can come in, EM, but your children cannot." She turned on her heel and went back to her new husband. EM flipped a nut, yelling about how she was invited, couldn't find a babysitter, etc. 3 of the groomsmen escorted her and her kids to the door. I'm sorry, if an invitation says don't bring your kids, don't bring your friggin' kids. I don't care if you can't find a babysitter or whatnot, then you don't get to go. That's part of the responsibility of being a parent, not dragging your kids to a party that they're not invited for. And I don't care how well behaved you say they are. If their ages are 10 or below, and there's, 3 or 4 of them? No, they're not going to be well behaved enough for that. I'm sorry. Parents, I can't imagine how tough it is having to find people to watch your kids and stuff. I have a hard enough time finding people to watch my dogs when I want to go out sometimes. But your kids are your responsibility. That's on you. And you do not get to bypass rules on a day that big. Weddings are very important to some people. And you have to respect that if they're your friend and everything. You have to respect that if they say no kids, it means no kids. So I'm sorry, but you're kind of being a bit of an a-hole doing that. You don't get to make that decision for them. See you at the next wedding. Ex-husband ghosts ex-wife racks up a huge bill he clearly didn't think things through. My compliance was malicious for the ex-husband. I'm working in the billing queue in a call center for one of big three telcos, and a client calls in regarding a billing concern. This lady calls in, is puzzled by why she got charged a one-time fee of $49 for a wireless access point, its Gen 1 equipment for wireless setup, top boxes for Optic TV. She's even more puzzled, why would she have that charge when she doesn't have TV services from us? And I inform her that it started more or less a month ago. She's disputing that because Optic TV isn't available in her area. Now I'm confused. She lives in a small town and there's no Optic TV there. I did a little digging and found out that someone, no ex-husband, was still on her account and got a 3-year contract to get a free TV for Optic TV and internet. She begins to cry on the phone and tells me her now ex-husband had an affair with a younger woman, divorced her, milked her for as much as he could, and apparently still is milking her for more. He totally ghosted her, moved to Alberta, changed his email, phone number, blocked her on all social media, etc. In my mind, I'm like, what a D-head. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. If you cancel the services, you're on hook to pay for cancellation fees and so on. I can tell her, though, I can remove his access to your account, and you can also add on a password, downgrade the internet and TV to the bare essentials, and I can attempt to redirect the TV gift from his address to hers, but there's no guarantee as it's been processed already. I can hear the light going off in her head. Wait, what? Where is he living now? Why, yes, he's got TV and internet services, so there's a service address. She goes really quiet, says her lawyer and herself have been trying to track him down, but his family and friends are being tight-lipped about it. She asks if I'm allowed to give that info to her. I smile and reply, this is your account. You have unrestricted access for service address, phone numbers, emails that your now ex-husband provided to us to get hooked up. She asks if I can give her his new address, his new cell number, and the second number left on the account, presumably the new woman, and contact info over the phone right now. I ask if she had a pen and paper handy. She was so ecstatic, and after giving her all the details from her account regarding the second service address, downgrade everything, and he was a hockey fan and there was a game playing right now with his team, so I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when the game cuts out and he calls in to ask what the F, and discovers he's been removed and there's an account pin and he's been discovered by his ex-wife and lawyer. You know, I wasn't entirely sure how this story could end up having a happy ending, but that does sound at least like a satisfying ending, to say the very least. Like, what an absolute scumbag to be opening up an account in her name with like her info and stuff. Like, that has to be illegal, right? Was he really that desperate for TV and internet and stuff that he would like illegally open up that account with her stuff or like connected to her? And then think that she wouldn't somehow find out, that you wouldn't eventually contact her or something along those lines? I guess he just assumed that she would ignore the charges or something like that, which, yeah, what an absolute a-hole. I'm very happy that he got caught. He sounds like a just kind of miserable person in general. And boy, I hope his ex-wife and her lawyer just had an absolute field day with that, because, man, just what a scuzzy move. And just get your own internet and stuff, for Christ's sake. My dad is furious that my mom slept with other people in an open marriage he wanted. My parents got married when they were super young. My dad knocked up my mom and their parents married them off. My grandfather was able to set up some business for my dad in a big city, and they moved here soon after my birth. My mom grew up in a conservative southern town where she was taught to be a submissive wife, and even after moving to the big city, she didn't spend much time socializing. She had no friends and never went out. My dad was only there to provide for us. He was always away on business, and he wasn't there as a husband for my mom or as a father to me. My dad made a lot of money, so we never lacked anything. Growing up, I became my mom's best friend. We would talk about everything. I pushed her to make friends and to find hobbies. After years of pushing, she started going to a nearby park and made her first friend, a gym trainer. Encouraged by her friend in mind, she decided to join the gym. She met a few more people there and started having some semblance of a social life, but she still continued to tell me everything. I think my dad's new secretary gave him the idea, but he asked my mom for an open marriage almost a year ago. He told her he wasn't happy in their marriage and that she wasn't providing him with everything he wanted. My mom, who is a Christian wife, was mortified and told me about the proposal in tears. I suggested she get a divorce, but she said she didn't believe in it and she wouldn't be the one to end their marriage. As my dad pushed, I knew exactly where this would end up if my mom agreed. Her friend and I convinced her. My mom was hesitant at first, but she agreed with the condition that they would be completely transparent with each other. My dad was a middle-aged 41-year-old man with a belly, and my mom, 39, was an athletic woman who worked out regularly. I'm a 22-year-old woman, by the way. I don't know how my dad was so blind or what he thought would happen. I helped create online dating profiles for my mom almost 6 months ago. After getting an insane number of matches, choosing from them and chatting with them for months, my mom started hooking up with a few people. Getting all this attention has provided a massive boost to her confidence, and she seems better. My dad hooked up with his secretary almost immediately. He's had very little luck with other ladies. With their transparency thing, my mom tells him about all her hookups. A few weeks ago, my dad screamed at my mom for some minor thing. Usually my mom would have apologized, but with her new confidence, she didn't back down. It's been constant fights the last few weeks. My dad keeps starting fights by making snide remarks about my mom's clothing or appearance. He almost even called my mom a W, but stopped himself. I think open marriage finally sunk in. My mom told me he tried to have a conversation about stopping their open marriage, but she immediately shot it down. I think they'll split up. My dad was never there for either of us, but the thought of my parents splitting up still feels weird. I don't feel bad for my dad, but I wish he put effort into his family. I'm happy for my mom, though. Update. A few days after my previous post, my dad left our home and had a divorce served to mom in a week. My grandparents didn't know about any of this, but my dad told them when he served the divorce. He also implied to them that my mom was cheating on him. Both sets of grandparents came to our home and started berating my mom. I kept screenshots of all my parents' communications and my mom showed them to them, and it got way worse after that. Grandparents started fighting each other, blaming each other's children for causing all this. A few days after this, my mom's old church friends came to our home. Back when my mom used to go to church, they used to look down on her for being from a small town. My mom has always been a very caring and non-judgmental person, so she disagreed with their bigotry, and they began excluding her from their activities. After she met her gym friends, my mom stopped going to church entirely. These church friends started calling my mom an S, and she kicked them out. My mom is on a cut right now, so she has very defined abs and arms. So along with all the normal stuff getting thrown at her, my grandparents accused her of having a man's body, and she also had a lot of random transphobia thrown at her. Her trainer friend has been a great support throughout all this. She contacted the attorney she used for her divorce, and my mom is spending a lot of time at her house. Turns out the business my dad is running is owned by mom. It was set up by my mom's dad in her name, so it belongs to her. I did not know this until now and assumed that my dad owned it. The whole situation is a huge mess right now. Dad is living in some hotel, and my grandparents left yesterday after a week of fighting and trying to force my parents back together. I know there's a lot more divorce drama to come, but I hope it calms down for now. First off, the biggest props to that mom, who is my age. Which also, I mean, I've been getting kind of fit. I get it. I'm down with her. That's awesome. Because A, she was forced into a marriage, essentially. Like, at that age, you're being forced into it. She did not seem like the kind of person to stand up to her parents. Probably didn't want that or whatever. And good on her for finding some confidence. She deserves that. Good golly, that's awesome, you know? And That open marriage, yeah, I think the moment you knew right from the beginning, Dad was going to go for the secretary, but it was going to be a marriage ender. Like, an open marriage when their relationship has not been that for so long, the chances of it working out, especially with the sounds of how they both are, that was destined to fail right off the bat, I think. But in a way, that's good for your mom, because she clearly deserves more, you know? She is working on her life herself. She's still got so much life ahead of her and stuff that she can do. And you know what? I hope she doesn't let her parents or your dad get in the way of that. She deserves to live a full and happy life, and it sounds like she's finally starting to do that. Neighbors keep parking in our lot. I froze them out. This happened around 20 years ago. Our family owned 2 apartment buildings, 3 units each. We lived in 2 of them, rented out the other 4. There's nothing but these 3 flats lining both sides of the road for about a mile. Not all have parking. On the side streets are houses and very little street parking. We had more land than most of these units, since it was also our home. So we had parking for around 16 cars. Everything was fine for literally decades. Then cars started appearing in our parking lot that were not our tenants. I blocked one in one day, went outside to see this a-hole drove through our bushes and across the yard to get out. I called the cops, nothing they could do. So I called a tow company and had them put up signs. We'd have to call them to have a car towed. The signs seemed to work, no more random cars. Until New Year's Eve one year. I arrive home and every space is filled. There are even cars on the street blocking in other cars. I'm beyond peed. I called the tow company. They can't do anything for a few hours because they are so busy. We're in the Chicago suburbs. It's below zero. I have an idea. I dig out the lawn sprinklers and hoses. I run one hose inside to the laundry room faucet and turn on the hot water. This way the hose and sprinklers won't ice up. But the cars and ground sure did. 3 sprinklers moved every half hour or so for almost 5 hours. Every car, every square inch of the parking lot, the street by the cars encased in ice. I made it a point to spray ice in the locks, between the window seals and glass, in the grills, put away the sprinklers and hoses, went to bed, 4 a.m., furious pounding on the doors, doorbells ringing nonstop. We just smiled and called the cops, waited until they arrived, and went outside. Cops were holding back laughter. These people were told to park here by their friend who owned an apartment several buildings away, the same idiot who drove over our bushes. I pointed to the tow sign and told the people to move their cars or get towed. In our town, cops can ticket on private property with the owner's permission, so all cars were ticketed. They were also towed since nobody could get in their vehicles. Wish I had it on video. I don't know where I fall in this story because on one side, I don't like landlords and I never want to side with you. But on the other side, I don't like people just taking up all these different parking spaces and stuff, but especially if it's for private parking. Like, if these people are taking up parking spaces that, like, you and your tenants are supposed to have access to, that's a pretty crap move. Like, and they're blocking in other cars, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know, but it's New Year, or what? It was some party, New Year's Eve or something. I don't remember. I'm not going to go back and look, but I don't know. If it was a big party day, I feel like an exception could be made, and I feel like, I don't know, that was a pretty extreme reaction. You could have, the tow trucks could have been there eventually. So, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. It feels pretty justified, maybe a little too extreme, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just inclined to not side with you because you're landlords, and I don't love that, but apartment landlords are slightly better, maybe. I don't know. What do you think in the comments? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just using my own biases and holding grudges against all of the terrible landlords I've had.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.